The true story behind I Am the Night is creepier and twistier than anything on basic cable. I Am the Night has attracted a lot of attention after its 2019 debut on TNT. The limited series tells the story of a young woman and her search for her true parentage. That woman, Fauna Hodel, finds a deep, dark well of secrets in her past, guarded by a powerful and possibly sinister presence. The most shocking part of the series might be that Fauna is real, and so are many of the discoveries she makes. As Fauna herself detailed in her 2008 memoir, One Day She'll Darken, the Hodel family history is filled with abuse and hidden aggression under a veneer of wealth and artistic prestige. It may even contain the secret to solving the 1947 Black Dahlia case, one of the most infamous unsolved Hollywood murders. Fauna Hodel was given away at birth. The real-life Fauna Hodel was born in 1951 and quickly given away by her 16-year-old mother, Tamar, at the urging of her family. Tamar, believing that a black family would raise Fauna in an environment of love and kindness, left her daughter with African-American casino worker Jimmy Lee. Lee and her family raised Fauna as best they could, but Fauna always felt out of place and unsure of her identity. In her early 20s, Fauna decided to locate her birth mother. Fauna Hodel's mother Tamar Hodel was abused by her own father. Fauna Hodel's birth mother, Tamar Hodel, alleges a disturbing relationship with her father, George Hodel. Witnesses and years of evidence have both corroborated her claim. George harmed Tamar for years, reportedly beginning as early as age 11. George finally went before a court on charges of familial relations in 1949, but despite the public trial, he was acquitted. Instead, authorities sent Tamar to a juvenile facility for laying. Years later, was it discovered that witnesses set to testify against George were paid off to the tune of $10,000 to $15,000 each. Fauna Hodel's grandfather George Hodel may have been behind the Black Dahlia case. In 1947, the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short was discovered in Los Angeles' Leimert Park. The incredible details shocked the public. Despite potentially related incidences, intense police attention, and decades of amateur detectives attempting to find the culprit, no one has even been brought to trial. However, Fauna Hodel's grandfather, George Hodel, was one of the LAPD's 22 viable suspects. Tamar Hodel's half-brother Steve Hodel was a Los Angeles police officer for 23 years but never suspected his father until George's passing in 1999. Going through some of George's effects, Steve discovered two photos he believes to be of Short, the Black Dahlia herself. After further investigation, Steve became more confident that George was the culprit. As a doctor, George had the medical knowledge to perform the specific cuts found on Short, and his temperamental nature may have provoked the act in the first place. Tragedy and scandal followed George Hodel. George Hodel at one time lived with 3 female partners, and rumors swirled that his STI clinic was the site of secret pregnancy terminations that provided shakedown fodder for many influential people. In 1945, his clinic secretary Ruth Spalding allegedly took her own life. Although some police officers believed she was pressured, police bugged George's home after the 1949 trial and, in February 1950, overheard many disturbing things. A transcript of the February 19th tape includes female screams, a reference to police figuring out a woman was harmed, and most famously, George hinting at culpability. Supposing I did. Off the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she passed. One assistant said the evidence was strong enough to file charges against George Hodel. Despite the recording, the LAPD did not apprehend George Hodel, and in March 1950, he retreated to the Philippines. He spent most of the next 40 years there, returning to San Francisco in 1990 and later passing in 1999 after Steve Hodel brought his evidence to the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. Then Deputy District Attorney Stephen K. reviewed it and was left impressed. K said that if he could, he would hold George accountable and file 2 capital counts against him. Other police officers and detectives, including Black Dahlia case officer Brian Carr, don't find Steve's case convincing and dispute the alleged pictures of Elizabeth Short. Opinion is mixed, but no one has conclusively disproven George as a suspect either. George Hodel had strange connections to prominent artists. George Hodel was friends with many prominent Los Angeles artists, including director John Huston, until George married his former wife. Another family friend was Man Ray, an influential surrealist artist who spent 11 years painting and photographing in Los Angeles. Tamara Hodel called Ray a dirty old man, and said he took explicit photographs of her as a teenager. Steve Hodel maintains that two of Ray's photographs, titled Lesser Moro and Minotaur, appear visually similar to how the culprit posed Elizabeth Short's body. He also proposes that Short modeled for Ray in Liquidog. Back in 1943, a 1961 painting by William Copley, another surrealist, titled It Is Midnight, Dr. Blank, depicts a man, an unclothed woman in peril, and surgical tools. Steve also believes that this piece subtly identifies George as the culprit and explains how the alignment of the tool spells Hodel MD. The Hodel family's distress spread from generation to generation. George Hodel's behavior continued to affect Tamara Hodel long after she stopped living with him. She told Vanity Fair in 2007, "If you're abused, you stay emotionally a little girl until someone helps." The broken Hodel family suffered hard times for years, with Tamara, Fauna, and Tamara's other daughter Fauna Elizabeth all having their first child at the age of 15. George Hodel may have also harmed Fauna Elizabeth. The reunion of Fauna to the family and the revelation of George's actions have brought a degree of closure to the Hodels, but the pain still lasts decades later. A movie based on Fauna Hodel's memoir was mysteriously shelved, although Fauna Hodel's memoir One Day She'll Darken was not published until 2008. It was in the works for many years prior. In 1990, her story caught the attention of actress Alfre Woodard, who successfully got a movie version titled Pretty Hattie's Baby into production. Despite the participation of major cast and crew talent, and a rough cut of the movie screening in 1991, the film was set aside and unfinished for unclear reasons. It has never been publicly shown again, and details are scarce to this day. Some believe that George Hodel caught wind of the rough cut screening and used his lasting influence to shut down the movie's production. Tamara Hodel's story may have inspired the movie Chinatown, and the classic 1974 movie Mystery Chinatown. Jake Gitz, Jack Nicholson, assists mysterious Dame Evelyn Cross-Murray, Faye Dunaway. Spoiler alert incoming. A pivotal scene reveals that Evelyn has a long and troubling relationship with her powerful father, Noah Cross, and her daughter is the product of his actions. The story bears a strong resemblance to the story of Tamara and George Hodel, including the late 1940s period. Tamara's close friend Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas briefly dated Jack Nicholson, and allegedly told him stories about Tamara that made their way into the Chinatown script. The truth may never be known, but it's curious that Noah Cross is played by John Huston, George's one-time friend.